On this week's episode, Diablo 4 Season 8 news, Call of Duty getting in trouble for using AI, because we all knew that was happening anyway. WWE 2K25 glitches, errors, and bugs, and more, but what do you expect with a game that's technically not out till this Friday? And some Star City Con news from Charlotte involving the top 8 of the regionals. This is the Goblin Grenade Podcast. First, that beautiful rolling intro. My name is Dom Douglas, and I've been playing Magic the Gathering for what seems like forever, but in fact it's only been on and off for about 30 years. With that comes an expectation that I'm the best player ever. You couldn't be any more wrong in that statement. What I do like, however, is having a lot of fun. Whether it be playing Limited, Draft, Commander, Standard when I get the chance, Arena, Magic the Gathering Online, it doesn't matter as long as a good time is had. And with that, I have some opinions, not just of Magic the Gathering, but also video games, comics, maybe even a TV show or two. This is the Goblin Grenade Podcast. Those topics were not in order, by the way. First things first, I'm just going to kick things off. My name is Dom Douglas, voice of XWW, commentator, but we're with the sister company, Max Heroes and Villains YouTube channel for the Goblin Grenade Podcast, where I tell you all about my opinions on nerd things, Magic the Gathering, and a host of other topics. This week, not as Magic the Gathering heavy, and more video game heavy. Sometimes it's going to happen here, folks. So I'll just start off with the Magic the Gathering stuff for those fans out there. If you like what you hear, leave a comment, leave a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can get all the awesome content that Max Heroes and Villains is going to be providing you, especially this podcast, along with everything else. That being said, Star City Games Convention, or SCG Con, was in Charlotte this past weekend. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it due to previous obligations. But the modern regional championships for this company happened, and it was something. First off, congratulations to Jesse Robkin for winning the modern regional championships. Apparently, they, from reading the article, the deck they won with, they've been playing this since 2019 and actually are one of the originators of the Grinding Breach deck. And then, went from, if I'm getting my story straight, a play-in qualifier the day before the championships happened, got in and winds up taking the whole thing down. Now, some people are complaining a bit that 6 of the top 8 decks were grinding breach decks. And if you don't know anything Magic the Gathering related, I will tell you this right now. I have almost zero experience in Modern. I play a mono red burn Runaway Steamkin deck because I actually want to think a little bit with my burn deck, and literally I am break glass in case of 7. If you need one more to fire off the event, bring me in. I'm playing mono red and I'm probably not there for a long time, but I'm going to be there for a fun time with me. And every time I've played this deck in Modern, and I haven't updated the deck in about a year or two, I've gotten compliments on it because it's not your typical mono red burn deck. It is a mono red burn deck, but I like playing Runaway Steamkin, a Runaway Steamkin variant of it. Grinding Breach wants to use Underworld Breach to basically, I guess, mill out your opponents, because Grinding Station, which is the other namesake card, I could be getting this deck completely wrong, but you tap it to sack an artifact, target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into their graveyard, and then whenever an artifact comes into play, you may untap Grinding Station. With Emery the Lock, 1 less to cast each artifact you cost. When it enters the battlefield, mill 4 cards. And then Jace. Jace is your win con. Yes, you want to empty your library out and either win with Jace, and then that is your redundancy copy to, I guess, Thassa's Oracle? So either way, you just want to mill your deck out and have that alternate win con. 6 of the top 8 happen to be Grinding Breach decks. The other 2 were Boros Energy and Amulet Titan, two very potent decks as well. But people are focusing on that 6 out of top 8. So, when it comes to day 1, the opening day of the tournament, before cutoff, if you're not in a certain win-loss bracket, you don't make day 2. It's a tournament after all. Breach made up the two different versions of Breach deck. The two different Breach decks made up 23% of the field, followed up by the two different versions of Blink at 15%. Eldrazi Ramp was 12%, and the three different versions of energy decks floating around right now in Modern, Boros, Jeskai, and Mardu made up 10% of the deck. So out of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different decks, technically speaking, they made up over 50% of the field, almost 60% of the field. So Amulet Titan, which was the only other one in the top 8, was the 5th most played deck at 6.8%. So there's welcome to Modern. Things aren't fair, and you need to gravitate towards the more powerful decks because playing your pet decks aren't going to get you far. Day 2, however, Breach made up 30% of the decks after cutoffs. So it went from basically 310 decks playing Breach to 93 decks. So I want to take a look at that. 200 almost decks that were playing Breach did not make day 2. 150 Blink decks didn't make it, and that was the second place deck in day 2 with 13.6% of the decks. Then the Amulet Titan decks, which made up 92 decks in day 1, made up 30 decks in day 2. So a third of the decks that were playing Amulet Titan made it to day 2. And that made up 10%. And then Eldrazi Ramp, which had 161 decks being played on day 1, only had 29 decks being played in day 2. So, yeah, Breach decks made 30%, but remember, 2/3 of all Breach decks just about did not make day 2. Whereas a third of the Amulet Titan decks did. But remember, it's flavor, not so much flavor of the month, because this grinding Breach deck has been around apparently since 2019. The 301 players, day 2 started out with 1,300 competitors, day 1, and then after cutoffs to day 2, it went to 301. So so that was SCG Con's regional championships breakdown from a guy who doesn't play Modern at all, but isn't saying that the format's on fire because 6 out of the 8 decks were one deck. It's Modern. It's almost it's Modern. It's supposed to be like this. Now, if this was Standard, different story, but I don't, because right now Standard has like 15 to 16 viable decks that are able to be played. Same thing in Modern, but you can't correlate the two, is what I'm attempting to say rather poorly. I'm going to go into a wrestling bit of news, basically the game. As I kick my table. 2K25 doesn't come out till this Friday, officially. But if you got one of the deluxe editions, you were able to play the game last week. Basically, you got a week early access, if not a little bit more, depending on what time zone you lived in. And so far, it's been full of bugs and glitches. But remember, technically, the game isn't out yet. So all those people that were paying the extra, if your main motivation to pay extra was to get a week early access, I'm sorry. Like, you kind of got SOL'd on this deal here, because the island, which is their new game, like open world thing, barely ran. The glitches, which were funny to look at, considering some of them had to be censored, depending on your which whether it was on Twitch or YouTube or whatever, Facebook or Instagram, certain things had to be like completely edited out because almost people were almost naked, which I don't understand. Technically, I want to say, how does this get past beta testing? But I think if you paid the deluxe edition and got to play a week early, you were one of the beta testers, which is a sad reality in gaming that's happening a little bit more often now. Actually, it's happening a lot. And I can't say, oh, it's bad. I'm literally beta testing Path of Exile 2 because I paid to be able to play Path of Exile 2 between 6 months to 12 months early before release. Now, that being said, I've played a lot of PoE 1, and I know I've been playing that game on and off since the beginning. I know the work that Grinding Gear Games will put into this. It's not unfounded. And besides, the money that you pay for the game, there is no win more. There is no win. You can't pay for power. You pay for cosmetics or storage spaces. That's it. That's it. In the game, that's it. Everything, you can go in free. And people have done it. It's like a weird, like, especially in the first game, people like have done challenge runs where they make a brand new account. A free Path of Exile 1 is free to play. If you want to play Path of Exile 2, you got to spend $30 to get that amount of in-game currency to be able to play the game, and then you can buy the stash tabs that you'll need and the auction tabs that you'll need to be able to actually trade using the in-game services, as opposed to like kind of like private messaging people. But even still, in Path of Exile 1, people have gotten to the end game, have completed end game content using just the free-to-play mechanics available, which is basically you can't use the auction house, technically, for lack of a better term. You can only do player-to-play trading through the website. So people have done it, and I want to do it too, but it has been so long since I've played 1, and I could probably get away with it in Settlers of Calgar season, because that's going to be extended for about 6 more months, apparently. But back to 2K25, if you paid for the deluxe editions and your main goal was to get that weekend, I'm sorry. But if you just found that as a bonus thing because you were more interested in all the DLC that you get, the season pass and all that, then cool, awesome. That week, you kind of got to beta test the game for 2K. And I'm going to wait to get it because I really only play GM mode. In 2K24, I'm telling the honest truth. Last week, March 3rd, I finally started playing Universe mode because I can't play My Rise and I can't play, I can't play My Rise or My Faction because I suck at the game. I'm too old, man. And in Universe mode, I put it on easy, like super easy, because I just want to like win. Like, I'm not trying to do this long drawn out thing here because I barely know the controls, but I love GM mode. So do I get the super spiffy edition with all the extra DLCs, or do I just get the base version of the game because I'm just going to be playing my GM mode mostly? So there's that. And to 2K's credit, they've already rolled out 4 or 5 updates fixing various issues with the game. I mean, day of, I think they had to release 1 or 2 in the first 24 hours of the release. So 2K's been on top of it, but just know there's some things that are wonky. Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I will tell, using AI for in-game assets. Before I start this Pandora's box of a conversation, I played for about the first 2 months of Call of Duty Black Ops 6. It's available on Game Pass for free. I thought I was going to download it. I thought I was going to play it for a week because my skills have deteriorated when it comes to first-person shooters. I mean, I don't consider Borderlands which is the main first-person shooters that I've been playing for the last couple of years, to be on the same arcade technical side of Call of Duty. It's two different complete games. Heck, I haven't even been playing Halo. I've not touched Halo Infinite since in 3 years. Halo Infinite is a different game than Call of Duty, or it used to be. And so I thought I was going to go into it, play for a week, get frustrated because I'm getting absolutely destroyed in game. Turns out I'm not complete dog doo-doo in the game. And for those of you wondering, in the comment down below, why don't I swear? Hey man, this is a kid-friendly, as kid-friendly as I can make it. Okay, I'm not sure. The PG, there is no 13 in that PG rating on this show here. On the old podcast, you kind of used to be. But leave a comment down below if you've made it A, this far, and B, would like to see, like, I don't know, a Goblin Grenade After Dark or whatever, like, you know, where I kind of don't self-censor and censor some things I have to say. Where the real things can be. Or, you know, where I have to edit 150 swear words that I did on the last podcast of season 1. So, now that's been said. Call of Duty, I'm okay in. I'm not the best. I'm not the greatest. I'm not going to say I'm elite, but I'm pretty good. I'm you know, I'm in that weird in between of casual and try hard. And I will never play ranked. I learned that lesson in Overwatch. I loved Overwatch till I started playing ranked and needed to get my golden hammer for Reinhardt. And then that grind, which took a year, told me everything I needed to know about doing competitive ranked with my deteriorating first-person shooter skills. But Call of Duty was fun. I grinded camos for guns. I grinded the zombies. I think the base of the game, there's a reason why it's still the best first-person shooter on the market. It's a reason why people in droves, when the game first comes out, play Call of Duty. And to Black Ops 6 credit, it is a really solid game. The foundation's there, the gameplay's there, everything it runs fluid, smooth. It's an arcade shooter experience. It's damn good. The litany, and I think I have it on my notes here. Okay, yeah. I already did that. It's a live stream service hellscape. This model sadly works where basically every day it seems they're releasing a new monetization, a new skin, a new battle pass, battle passes on top of battle passes to get other battle passes, character skins with finishing moves that barely function or animate correctly because they're releasing so much of it. Sadly, this works. And that's in my notes. Sadly, it's working because people are buying them still because they still keep coming out with it. And they're not, and there's some big fish hunting, if you will, when it comes to the clientele with the cosmetics and the absolute deluge that they drop on you. But there's also a proportionate decline in player base. And around this time, I'm glad that I stopped playing before my sabbatical in New Jersey, because the absolute flood of transactions hadn't taken place yet. So I got the nice, pure, if you will, Black Ops 6 experience before the Ninja Turtles arrived for $100 and this, that, and the other thing. I could also understand with the absolute glut of transactions that happens in Black Ops 6 if this was a forever game. If you don't know what a forever game means, it's basically a game that you're going to be playing for years and years and years. When it comes to the Call of Duty games, there's going to be another one this year and next year and the year after that, and the year after that, and after that, and the skins that you buy, and the cosmetics that you buy, and the battle passes that you buy do not transfer over from this year's Call of Duty to the next. Maybe in Warzone, because that is kind of their forever game, but unless you're playing the Battle Royale Call of Duty, you're basically going to be rebuying these things next year. So your $70 game, or if you have Game Pass, your free to play Call of Duty game could wind up costing you hundreds of dollars a year if you're lucky and unfortunate enough to buy these cosmetics or want to buy these cosmetics. There's some that I wanted to buy, but I know better. But the thing is, Black Ops 6 is a good game because it was being developed for 4 years, I think. There was a lot of time that was put into Black Ops 6. And history has a bad way of repeating itself, especially in Call of Duty, because this monetization method and abuse, honestly, works. But you're 1 or 2 really, really bad games away from having the bottom completely fall out. And Call of Duty has released some duds, especially recently with Modern Warfare 3 being an absolute why was this released moment. There's been Advanced Warfighter. There's been Ghost. There's been a couple of Call of Duty games that just didn't click, that just weren't good. And they didn't have these really abusive monetizations that happened, this live service thing that would happen. And honestly, just look at Battlefield 2042 or Battlefield 5 even. Like, one bad game damn near ruined that company. So now that preface has been said, the newest Call of Duty, and we've all suspected it ever since the Christmas stuff with the Santa zombie photo, it being AI. And it's not just like AI tweaked by a human being afterwards or anything like that. No, it is literally AI slop that they're doing. And it's not just for promotional material either. It's for in-game content. You know, the stuff that you're spending hundreds of dollars on to get. Some of that stuff that you've bought wasn't created by a human being at all. It was generative AI. And the problem is, it's somebody typing in, make me a gun that looks like it's oozing pus. All right, now that gun has been created. They throw it into whatever way to put it into the game, and then they sell it for $10. All because somebody typed in those words. No artists were paid, no renderers were paid, no people working. And the problem is, it's already happening. Their layoffs in the video game industry is really bad right now. And you can't say record profits while laying off people in the same company. I'm sorry, you can't say that and be held at an esteemed high regard. I'm sorry, Call of Duty franchise is trash because they've had, once again, record-breaking profits and layoffs in the same sentence. Like, you can't do it. Diablo's to blame. Wizards of the Coast is to blame as well. Hasbro's to blame as well. And now with the advert of AI being used and confirmed, because Steam requires developers now to say, was AI used in the creation of certain aspects of this game? And Activision, to their credit, had to fess up on Steam and say, yeah, we've been using AI. So what does this mean for Call of Duty player base? Probably nothing. It's still going to stay the same as is. There's always that drop-off in Call of Duty. You're going to have really high numbers in the beginning, and then a couple months later, the downturn starts, and then it will never curve upwards again unless something amazing happens. And with you using AI, that's not going to happen. And even with like your Ricochet anti-cheat system basically being a joke within the community, yeah, like you're never going to recover a lost player. I know I'm not playing at all. I've already deleted Call of Duty 6. I actually deleted it before I did my sabbatical. And I'm kind of glad I did, because I would watch videos the first week or two of my sabbatical and I was just not liking what I was seeing. I mean, These Knives Only and Slade were some of my favorite content to watch about Call of Duty. And Slade, for a while, stopped doing Call of Duty content. And then These Knives Only was to show, like, would constantly do it because they only use melee. Hence the name These Knives Only. And even, and just the stuff that they were showing me was just, I knew going back, when I got back from my sabbatical, I wasn't going to have fun if I logged in. And I'm kind of glad I am, because now I would be inundated with the Siren's Call to buy these cosmetics. Because now when you get killed, you can check out a player's loadout and buy them with the click of a button. Yeah. But the problem is, it's still a really good game. It plays really good. It plays really nice. Omni movement is pretty good. Like, Black Ops 6, gameplay-wise, base game, no cosmetic BS added. To me, it would be in the Pantheon. It would be in the top 10 games I've played of all time. Base game. But you have to add in all the other accoutrements, if you will, to the game, and that immediately just takes it out of the top 100 for me, because honestly, it wasn't fun. For our last topic, I know it's been weird. It's been somewhat negative, this one. Unfortunately, sometimes that's the way it happens. Campfire chat for Diablo 4 Season 8 happened. And in the middle of it, I almost said, and did, do I just delete this game now? The short version, if you don't want to hear the next 20 minutes or so. They are making the grind to Torment 4 harder. They're making the grind to level harder. And they're making items that drop less relevant because of this stupid insistence of not having a loot filter. They also have been trying to tell us that the massive amount of loot that drops is for the ecosystem, so you can trade it and break them down for future weapons and whatnot. Do you know how many stars wind up on my mini-map after 10 to 15 minutes of playing, especially in Season 7, if I'm doing the headhunts? I don't pick anything up unless it has a star next to it. Because at this certain point, I only need to level up my gear by getting Ancestrals. That's it. And that's me blasting boss content, if I feel like blasting boss content at Torment 3. Because there's only... the difference between Torment 3 and 4 isn't as significant. It's basically for, like, pride. It's like bragging rights. But Torment 3, I will blast Duriel and Andariel. And that's how I will get the vast majority of my Ancestrals. They want to make that harder in Season 8 because they're like, oh, the grind to XPing to level 60 on average was 9 hours. Now we're going to make that back to the way it used to be, where it was 15 hours to get to level 60. Because everybody enjoys the grind. No, we don't. And your numbers are skewed because headhunts gave a disproportionate amount of XP. Considering that you would have 4 headhunts going on at any given time. So if you timed it right, you could hit all 4 and just do this constant loop of headhunts. What gives? Like, And you're you want to say the grind to 60 for the vast majority of casuals is fun and exciting. It was, but the game's been out for a year and a half now. It is a chore. There are certain things in this game that I think is a chore to do. Every season, I get it, I have to start from scratch. And I don't have to get Lilith Salters. Thank you, at least, for not making us do that every year. Every season, I mean. But I have to find every portal, town, waypoint. I have to fight every stronghold for the 8th time. It's boring. Fighting strongholds is boring. I don't care who you are. Season 6, I overpowered myself before doing the strongholds just so I can do them in a minute or two. This year, I've not done the vast majority of strongholds. Because what am I missing? Legion content? After a while, that doesn't even matter anymore. I don't miss any of the world boss fights for it. And honestly, if I don't hit a waypoint or two, it doesn't matter. I can skip and forego that because it doesn't help overall. So now you want to make that grind harder. And you also want to make the grind to Torment 4 even harder. You want to be the casual game for action ARPGs. But now you're going to do this in Season 8, making you not casual anymore, wanting to show your Diablo 2 roots, or maybe influenced by Path of Exile. And people are saying this is a much better version of D3. I already own Diablo 3. Why do I want to play a prettier version of it? Season 7 was pretty not as good. I mean, yeah, it wasn't as good. I mean, I literally gamed the system by leveling my 2 alts, a sorceress and a barbarian, in case I wanted to play them, by grinding out my Torment 4 leveled Necro, getting all the cash gifts from the headhunts, putting them in my storage unit, and then opening them up on a brand new alt character and just having them leveled in like 10 minutes. It was fun because I was like, yay, I don't have to level and I can just find the gear and that shouldn't be too hard. And then I did it for the barbarian, and then I eventually got sick of it and didn't even play the March of the Goblins event. Because why? And so that's just those two things right there. And then they're like, oh, well, we're going to put more emphasis on gear and put more blue gear with more affixes on it, because we don't like the fact that people get legendaries and rares all at this astonishing drop. You created loot 2.0 and now you're going to revert it to loot 1.5? So that don't make any sense either. And then you announced what the Season 8 was going to be. And at first, I was really hyped for boss powers, because you're going to be able to get end boss content powers. But then I was like, oh, so we're just doing the same seasonal content again for like the last 4 seasons now, where it's been witch powers and, all this other. You're basically obtaining other power. You're not really doing anything different. And it's been like that way for like at least 4 or 5 of the last seasons, where it's just been the same content in a different shell. And there's still no true endgame content, like blasting dungeons, okay. And I'm going to say it, and it's going to sound rough, but Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile 1's endgame content is actually still one of the best endgame contents that I've experienced. Then a new boss, I guess it's calling a pinnacle boss, or I guess it's what they've been calling, but we've been calling them Uber fights. Introduces 3 new bosses to Diablo 4. we've encountered in Diablo franchise before. Urivar and Knight introduced in Season 6 with the Vessel of Hatred campaign, and they said that, and I was like, who? Huh? Who was that? Is that the cigarette chopping guy? I don't know. I couldn't point him out in the lineup. And he joins the ranks of Vashar, Beast of the Ice, and other low difficulty lair bosses. Harbinger of Hatred, also introduced in Hatred campaign, is comparable to Duriel and Andariel in difficulty. I liked when I kind of popped when the Harbinger of Hatred, because I actually kind of like that boss fight. That fight was actually really cool. It's a really a much different style fight than we've had up until that point. And then Belial is now the new highest difficulty lair boss in Diablo 4. So there's also a lesser form that can spawn after defeating other lair bosses. Boss changes in the lair bosses. Their fights are expected to take longer and require more situational awareness compared to past seasons. Look, once again, Duriel and Andariel fights, depending on which one I'm built for, is the boss I'm going to be fighting a lot. Usually it's Duriel. It's a little easier of a fight. You made the fights that way. I think you should honor how easy those fights technically can be and not keep messing with them. Same company who thought boosting shields for every enemy was the correct decision to make this season. Yeah, there's plenty of gameplay out there of just people just spamming the blood, not blood wave, but like the blood shock thing for Necro, and just standing next to the boss and holding that button down for 2 minutes because that's how much you gave shields. So it's obvious you're overcorrecting massively with your numbers and no real thought is being put into it. So now you want to make the bosses more difficult. And this is all also streamlining into them wanting you to play with other people. I don't like other people. Straight up. Don't trust them. Especially online. Don't trust anybody. DTA. Austin taught me that in the Attitude Era. And when it comes to this game, there should be a solo self found. Quit being cowards and put it in. We've been asking for it for day one, not, constant boss tweaks and reskins of the same seasonal mechanic over and over and over and over and over and over again. Lair bosses, however, no longer require summoning material, though players must use lair keys specific to each boss to open their hoard. So basically, this was a problem I guess nobody was having that they solved. You would get into a party, hence why I don't trust parties, DTA everybody, and you would just kind of do your rotations. You would pay for an Andariel boss fight, then the next person would, then the next person would, and then there'd be times where one person wouldn't be paying the Andariel fights, get 30 free fights, and then leave. This is a problem that less than 1% of your player base was having. You solve that one. You solve that one. You solve the most worthless problem and didn't solve any of the big ones that the community is currently having with your game, namely put a loot filter in, you cowards. Or have my pet demolish anything that doesn't have a star next to it when I'm in Torment 1 and 2. Pick it up and destroy it immediately. Not using it. Never going to use it, never going to pick it up. That'd be the greatest concession they could do. But no, they won't do that. But they'll fix this random problem that nobody's having. Then there's the boss powers, you can get Lilith's Wind of Hate. The one they showed, and I was shocked that they showed this on the Campfire live stream because it looked so bad. Like, it was like, I think, the Wandering Death's chest beam is the one they showed. it looked so bad because it just spins around independently of you. So you can't aim it. It just circles around, but it shoots a beam of light, and it looked so bad. Like it looked like poor Photoshop on top of a video game. Apparition Incursions is a new open world event that culminates in players fighting 3 bosses. There are 10 bosses, each of which grants a player a boss power when defeated. So this is how you get your boss powers. You can get some in before going into Torment 1, and then there's like the other half that you have to be in Torment 1 to unlock. But Torment 1 is going to be harder to get into this year. Then there's the obvious like new introduction to aspects, uniques. Barbarians are getting a unique glove for Mighty Throw. Okay. Druids are getting one for crits. Necros are getting a power to afflict enemies with Vampiric Curse. Consuming a corpse also contributes a soul to Vampiric Curse, which can stack up to 20 souls. Army of the Dead can now unleash the souls from Vampiric Curse. The Rogue is getting a Poison Trap unique. Sorcerer is getting Ice Shards now spread out an additional 2 shards. And each deal 1 to 2% increased damage for each time Ice Shards damages an enemy for up to 5 seconds, up to 50 to 75%. Spiritborn, picking up a Storm Feather, forms a firestorm around you for 8 seconds. That's going to be nerfed. So yeah, some of the things, the boss fight mechanics, the boss powers, I kind of like, I kind of dig. The rest of the BS that this season is going to do, this might honestly be me just powerhousing my way through as fast as I can with the seasonal tree as far as I can. Because if there is stuff requiring Torment 4 on the seasonal, that is BS, because you've said you want Torment 4 to only be in the top 10% of players. Because right now it's like between 50 and 60% of players get to Torment 4. Now you want that number to go to 10%. So you want 10% of your players to get to your what would be considered endgame content. Gee, I wonder where you got that from. Look, Path of Exile is a very hard game. Path of Exile has never lied to you, though. Path of Exile has never said we are a casual game. Path of Exile has always said we are the spiritual successor. Not so much, but you know, this is spiritually based off of Diablo 2, which in itself is a really hard ARPG. To the point that on The Resurrected, I finally beat Nightmare Mode. Or is it Hell? I finally beat the second of 3 difficulties last year. That's how hard this game is, and I enjoy that game too, but I know what I'm getting into. I know what I'm getting into when it comes to Path of Exile 1 and 2. And when I got into Diablo 4 last week, I said it's baby's first ARPG, and now you're trying to not make it that way. Do one, do the other. You can't do both. And also, like, this Diablo 3ing of, once again, is one of those things where it's like, on one hand, you want to make this the easiest ARPG to exist. Because that's what Diablo 3 is. I could pop Diablo 3 in right now, and within the first hour or two, and I haven't played it in years, I could probably hit, like, level cap and start paragoning. I seriously have a cheat sheet that I would write down, because I would do nothing but Barbarian, spin to win, baby, and I have, like, all right, trade my follower's weapon for mine, do this, do that, do the challenge dungeon first, get this weapon, max it out, get the gem to, like, make it a level 1 item, and then just blast through. I have it written down still, and I might do that just to see about next week's podcast. But right now, Diablo 4 wants to be a better version of Diablo 3 while at the same time being a hardcore ARPG. And it can't do both. It can't do hardcore. I'm very serious. They tried. Diablo 3 tried to be hardcore in the beginning and it failed. Diablo 4 tried to be hardcore in the beginning and it failed. Look at Loot 2.0. They've done it twice now in Diablo 3 and 4. There's been something called Loot 2.0 or Loot Reborn in both games because they tried their best to make a very super difficult hardcore action RPG and failed utterly at it. Or in the case of Diablo 4, misread what their audience wants because a lot of them played 3 to 4, not realizing they were going to make 4 very, very hard. Because 3 was easy and now they want 4 to be hard, but they didn't realize that they drew their player base in after they made 3 very easy. So I might play Season 8 just to max everything out in a week. One character, Barbarian, spin and win. That's all I'm going to do. And because this year it was Necro. Last year was Rogue. No, this season was Necro. Last season was Rogue. And almost every other season, in the first 6 seasons, was Barbarian. I love my Whirlwind Barbarians. But I might just do Barbarian because it's the easiest game. It's easy mode for me. Spin the win, hold the right trigger until I beat bosses. Get the seasonal progression done, and then log off and wait till Season 9. And start playing Path of Exile 2 0.2 when that drops. Oh, that's right. I'm going to be playing that first because this Diablo 4 Season 8 doesn't come out till the end of April. There's still a month and a half of Season 8. Anyway, once again, my name is Dom Douglas. This time a very video game centric podcast. We talked about WWE 2K25, we talked about Call of Duty, and we talked a lot about Diablo 4 with a little smidge of Magic the Gathering thrown in there just to keep it, I guess, on brand. No sooner do I finish recording the podcast, and mind you, this is why I don't do these on Monday, to get them out by Wednesday. Wizards drops the SpongeBob Secret Lair. So let's go into it. They drop. I'm very serious. Not even a half hour after finishing recording, before I could edit it up, which would be the next day, I see a video pop up on my YouTube. Pleasant Kenobi talking about this. So let's get into it. Courtesy of Wizards of the Coast and Collider, check out the contents of Magic the Gathering's upcoming Secret Lair crossover with SpongeBob SquarePants. We have SpongeBob SquarePants, which is Joda the Unifier. Patrick Star, which is Wartooth Warbrand. Gary the Snail is Toxrola Corrosive. As you can tell, these are not new cards. These are like the Godzilla treatments where they're existing cards just under a different name, or like, you know, the Midnight Hunt Crimson Vow ones that they would do, like Count Dracula's Edgar Markov, you know. Squidward's Sarcastic Snob is Plankton is Screv Defectormite. Sandy Cheeks Martial Astronaut is Toski, Bearer of Secrets. Mr. Krabs is Cherix, the Raging Isle. Then it's Daze, Inevitable Betrayal, Force of Despair, interesting reprint on Force of Despair, Counterspell, Night's Whisper, and then the 5 basic lands, full art, and a food token. It is the largest secret lair drop they've had in years. Includes 18 cards, each depicting iconic characters, locations, and even memes from the beloved cartoon. Those interested in acquiring, it will drop March 24th. It'll be in foil and non-foil while supplies last. So if you're not in line already, you're probably not getting them, even though it doesn't come out for another week or so. I I like when it's these type. And if more Secret Lairs are not unique cards anymore, because Standard has the Universes Beyond 3 coming out a year, I can get behind the Secret Lairs like this, where it's just, Troxel the Corrosive is Gary the Snail, that type of stuff. But yeah, this literally dropped 20-something minutes after the podcast, or during the podcast, and I didn't notice it for 20 minutes after I was done recording said podcast. So there you go. Secret Lair, SpongeBob, the cardboard crack joke is quickly becoming reality. If you don't know what cardboard crack is, it's a great, funny website about Magic the Gathering. Years ago, this was what they put as a comic, as a joke. I attack with SpongeBob. In response, I tap Kylo Ren to use Force Choke. Then I repulsor blast with Iron Man. Elsa shoots ice shards at Iron Man. I tap Whooper to give Iron Man +2/+2. No, Whopper, I mean. I counter by going sicko mode with Travis Scott. Next person. What game are you playing? Magic Gathering. Duh. Don't you know magic when you see it? In this comic, which came out years ago, now SpongeBob exists. Iron Man exists. Yeah, it's quickly becoming a reality, folks. My name is Dom Douglas, as I just said, and may your top deck always be mythic.